an Accessible Media Incorporated original production.
He was arrogant but successful. He took what he wanted and did not care who he hurt in so doing. He was ruthless and hateful. Yet on this night, he was being honored for his good deeds. But someone had the last say. Brutus Pascuas never knew what hit him. The killer almost got away with murder.
Hello there, it's Detective DJ, and welcome to another week and a brand new episode of the Detective DJ Crime Crusher series. We hope that everybody is having fun, that everybody has had an enjoyable week thus far, as we are enjoying our week. And we hope that this week you enjoy the episode that we have for you. It's called The Riverfront Reunion. Let's see what happens this week. Just want to introduce our team again to you so that you don't forget us. We have Chip Sanderson, our resident investigator. We have Dr. Ryan Martini, who is the crime scene specialist. We have Dr. Nicholas Gasquet, who is the resident pathologist. We have Alex Kirchhoff, who is our young sleuth. We have Dr. Shea Harrington, who is our resident psychologist, and I think that Dr. Shea has already given you the description for this week's episode. Okay, so the Riverfront Reunion. And the police have been called to a very luxurious hotel suite. This suite has a fantastic riverfront view, and the police walk through a very, very posh sitting room that is exquisitely furnished, and they enter into a huge bedroom. The plush carpet is extremely thick, and the thick drapes are drawn closed. The television set is playing very softly, which is a bit odd, and the lights are turned low, and there, sprawled on a king-size bed, is a man's body. This is the body of the well-known financier Brutus Pascuas, and his tie and jacket have been found on the floor, and his shoes have been found nearby. He is still, or was still, wearing his shirt, his pants, and his socks. There is a half-filled glass of some sort of nightcap, which sits on the nearby night table. So that is your crime scene, and based on this and information to come, our resident psychologist Dr. Shea has the following information to share with you. According to Dr. Shea, she thinks that this killing, or the killer, did this in the victim's room. They felt that that was a perfect location to carry out their murderous activity. Again, according to Dr. Shea, the perfect occasion for the victim to have been there is that a reception had just ended downstairs, and the victim's reason for having been there is that he was or had been honored earlier on at that reception. This is according to Dr. Shea. Now we'll see what happens next. Well, the motives that our Chip Sanderson, the resident investigator, has come up with, and my right-hand person, is that possibly someone may have wanted revenge on Brutus Pascuas, or maybe someone wanted payback, or it could be anything of the combination of both. Chip goes on to share this insight with us, and he has come up with a list of possible suspects that we ought to be looking at. The first is Aidan Lutch, the second is Kim Goodman, and the third is Milos Mangas. How Chip got the list of these suspects we won't know as yet, but this is who he has identified as possible suspects. Well, let's see what Chip has to say about the investigation. Brutus Pascuas had been invited to a special function, and this was being held at a very luxurious Riverfront hotel. It had been a sort of a class reunion that this reception was all about, and this class reunion also included a sort of a special ceremony to honor Brutus. Now, Brutus had been a very well-known financier, and he had done lots of charity work, but there was another side to our Brutus that many people did not know about. Some of his classmates, however, knew about this side. They always say that there are two sides to every story, two sides to every man, and Brutus Pascuas was no different. He was generous, but there was another brutal side to him. Brutal Brutus? Now, Brutus had come from a very well-to-do family. At university, he was a bully. He took whatever he wanted, and he had used his dad's influence to buy off people. And in addition, he had used his dad's influence to obtain special favors. He had treated some of his classmates with utter ruthlessness, and in business he had been the same with those that he had disliked. Brutus was never married and had no respect whatsoever for women. In some circles, he had been a marked and hated man. Now, Kim Goodman had known Brutus briefly at university. They had met at a Christmas party for first-year students, and at this party Brutus had flirted with Kim, and after the party was over she had asked her to go for a walk with him, saying that, they could go and see the Christmas lights on campus. At first Kim had agreed, but when she realized that Brutus was going the wrong way, she started to get a bit scared. He was taking her away from the main path, and she had tried to run. But Brutus had forced Kim into a lonely path that was covered with snow and surrounded by tall trees. Brutus had raped Kim repeatedly and then had left her lying in the snow on a very cold, Christmassy night. Hours later, she had been found by a security guard, and Kim had never lived down this horrendous experience. She had never pressed charges against Brutus, choosing instead to change universities, but she had vowed revenge, and over the years she had kept looking for ways to pay Brutus back, and oftentimes she would dream about how she would do it. Her opportunity came when she had received her invitation to the Riverfront class reunion and an honoring for Brutus during this reunion. Kim had managed to become an attorney at law and had had a very lucrative practice going with her partners. She was married with 2 young kids and had never told her husband about the incident with Brutus. Now, Milos Mangas, and Brutus had also known each other at university. They had both competed for the same football scholarship. Milos was by far the better player, and Brutus knew it. But he had wanted the scholarship because of the prestige that it would bring to him, despite the fact that he did not need the financial help. It all came down to prestige for Brutus. He also knew that Milos needed the scholarship because he came from a very poor family. Brutus had used his dad's influence to win this scholarship. Milos had found out what Brutus had done and had begged Brutus to help him financially. But when Brutus had refused and had started to taunt Milos was forced to drop out of university. This had not stopped young Milos from becoming successful. He studied hard, put himself through school, and he and his family had opened up a very successful pharmacy. But he had never forgot what Brutus had done to him. Like Kim Goodman, they did not forget. Now, he too, like Kim, had decided to take action. When he heard about the reunion and the honoring for Brutus, he decided that it was time for him to spring into action. He had also received an invitation to the reunion and honoring, and this was what he was planning to do. Now, Aidan Luch and Brutus had rubbed shoulders a few years ago, and the two men had taken an instant disliking to each other. Brutus had used his influence to call in a loan to Aidan's company, and it had forced Aidan to sell his business at a great loss. And as a result of that, Aidan had gone into debt. Aidan had gone into the hotel industry, and as luck would have it, he was now the manager of the luxurious Riverfront Hotel. And it had fallen to Aidan to plan this gala affair. Kim had made a very bold move by phoning Brutus, asking if he would be her escort for the evening, because her husband was out of town and she wanted to have someone go with her. Brutus had readily agreed, because he had not forgotten what he had done to Kim so many years ago, and he was curious to see how Kim was doing. Kim had sat next to Brutus during the reception and had bided her time. As coffee was being served, Brutus had excused himself because he had wanted to visit the bathroom. Kim had made her move after Brutus had left. Milos had shadowed Brutus all evening, and at one time during the course of the evening the two had exchanged pleasantries. But Brutus had not recognized Milos. Milos and Brutus had chatted for a bit, and Milos had offered to get him a glass of wine from a passing waiter, and Brutus had readily agreed, and Milos had done the honors. A few minutes after that, the two men had moved on separately. After the reception, Aidan had offered to escort Brutus to his suite, and he had done so as a courtesy on behalf of the Riverfront Hotel. Brutus, by that time, was already quite intoxicated, and Aidan had walked with Brutus to the door of his suite. Aidan opened the door to the suite and had guided Brutus to the bedroom, and he had helped Brutus out of his shoes and jacket and undid his tie for him. Aidan had thrown the jacket and tie on the floor close to the bed and placed the shoes close to the jacket and tie. Next, he had poured a nightcap for Brutus and had offered it to him. Brutus had taken the glass and had slowly begun to put it to his lips. At that point, Aidan had turned and had walked quietly out of the room, and had closed the door to the suite softly behind him, and he had walked away without looking back. Some hours later, a cleaning maid had discovered Brutus's body. Now, according to our Chip, he has identified the following suspects, as I have noted previously, I should say. The first is Kim Goodman, and Kim had wanted revenge because Brutus had raped her at university in a very vulgar and awful way. She had never forgotten it. Aidan Luch was the second suspect, identified by Chip. He had wanted payback for what Brutus had done to him, forcing him out of business, and Aiden was not about to forget that either. And Milos Mangas was the third suspect. He had wanted payback for what Brutus had done to him at university, taking away a scholarship that Milos was much better suited for than Brutus. Let's now go to the cause of death. And according to our resident pathologist, Dr. Nicholas Gasquet, Brutus Pascuas had died of a massive heart attack. Alcohol and amphetamines had also been found in his system, and he had been dead for between 6 to 8 hours before being discovered by the cleaning lady. My goodness, what an awful death. After looking at all of the reports, I would like to submit the following as to how I think it was done. This is just a conjecture on my part, but let's see how we do with this, okay? The killer had probably done his deed when Brutus was unaware. They had slipped the amphetamines into his drink and had made sure that he had drunk that drink. This is how I think it was done. So let's just go back now to the crime scene. I want to give you a summary of the crime scene and how we think it was done and who the suspects were. Okay, so the crime scene is one where the body of Brutus Pascuas has been found sprawled on his bed. He's dead. He is dressed in his shirt, his pants, and his socks. His jacket and tie are found close by on the floor. Shoes are found there as well. Brutus was there as part of a class reunion reception, and he was also being honored in that class reunion. So this is why he was there. And the suspects, Kim Goodman, she had wanted revenge for what Brutus had done to her at university. Aiden Luch, Brutus had run him out of business, and he had wanted payback. Brutus had sent Aiden's business into bankruptcy. And finally, Milos Mangas. He was the one who lost the scholarship to Brutus at university, a football scholarship, because Brutus had used his dad's influence to get that scholarship. Not that he really needed it, because he was financially very well off, but he had wanted it for prestige, and Milos knew this, and Milos came from a very poor family, had been forced to drop out of university, but had still done very, very well for himself. He became a very successful person with his family. So these are the three suspects, and they all wanted payback and revenge in their very own way. Now, I believe that young Alex has given you some very important questions to think about when trying to solve this mystery, okay? And I'm going to try and answer these questions for you.
Who wanted Brutus dead the most? Who had the best opportunity to kill Brutus?
All three of these suspects had very strong motives for wanting Brutus dead. Milos had come prepared to drop a load of amphetamines into Brutus's wine. He had gotten his opportunity when he had gotten a glass of wine for Brutus. He could have done it when Brutus's back was turned, but he had chickened out at the last minute. Kim had also had her opportunity, and so did Aiden. So folks, who really did this? Everybody had opportunity, everybody had motive, but there was one person who did the deed. Who do you think did it? It was Kim. She had not managed to slip her pills into Brutus's coffee when they were at the table and when he had left to go to the bathroom. But she was bound and determined to accomplish her mission before the night was out. She had followed Aidan and Brutus to Brutus's suite and had no difficulty slipping into the suite because Aidan was busy with Brutus, and she had watched as Aidan had helped Brutus to partially undress, and she had watched as Aidan offered the nightcap to Brutus. But, like Milos, Aidan had chickened out at the last minute. She had waited until Aidan was gone, and then she had stepped out of the shadows. She had gently taken the nightcap from Brutus's unsteady hand, emptied her bottle of amphetamines into the glass, and had offered it again to Brutus. She had guided the glass expertly to Brutus's lips and watched as he had started to drink it. He had not drunk too much before he had started to go into convulsions. Kim had taken the glass from him, quickly wiped her prints off of the glass, and then had placed it on the night table. She had then guided Brutus's convulsing body onto the bed and stood there watching him for a minute as he lay dying on the bed. Then she had exited the way she had come. So there you have it, folks. It was good old Kim Goodman who did it. She killed Brutus. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. We hope you found the right killer. I'd like to wish you a good rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. You take care, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.